This great Hollywood director began his film career as a costume designer, working with Woody Allen on such classics as Sleeper and Interiors. Wanting to become a film director, he listened to Woody's advice and wrote the screenplays for Car Wash and The Wiz, which ultimately led to his directorial debut on the comedy The Incredible Shrinking Woman, starring Lily Tomlin. Some of his most famous films include The Lost Boys with Kiefer Sutherland, Flatliners featuring Julia Roberts, Falling Down starring Michael Douglas, Batman Forever with Val Kilmer, Phone Booth top lining Colin Farrell, and Phantom of the Opera, nominated for 3 Academy Awards.
Hi, it's Joel Schumacher. Peace. I grew up right over the 59th Street Bridge in New York. I was born in 1939. So I grew up before television, and my father died when I was 4. My mother and I were quite poor, but was a producer then. He brought me to Hollywood and gave me an opportunity to do the costumes on a low-budget film from Joan Didion's great novel, Play It As It Lays. So I wanted to work in the movies desperately, and Dominic gave me my break. But I didn't see how I could become a director that way. And when I did Sleeper with Woody Allen in 1973, he really encouraged me to write as a way in. It's like having sex for the first time. It feels good, but you don't know if you're doing it right. That's what it's really like. It's terrifying and exhilarating. And I think it's probably like skydiving, although I've never done that. You're really leaping into the unknown. And anytime you do, there's that intoxicating mixture of, you know, terror with excitement, with exhilaration, because you're challenging yourself and you're doing something that you've always wanted to do, and you're actually doing it. And it is never what you think it's going to be. I was offered The Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin and her partner, Jane Wagner. They had written it, they were the producers, and if they hadn't approved of me, I wouldn't have gotten that job. So even though it was offered to me by Universal and Ned Tannen, who ran the studio, it was their approval that let me have the job. And I think they regretted it the second they hired me, because we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and Lily Tomlin was at the peak of her career then, and the movie wouldn't have gotten made. The studio wasn't making a Joel Schumacher film. They're making a Lily Tomlin film. I was replaceable. She was not. First movies are very, very difficult in that situation, because you're dealing with a major star, dealing with budget that you have never seen before, which probably would seem very small today, because this was at the end of the 70s. But you have all the responsibility, and you have no clout. You have no, everybody else on the set has made a lot of movies. The electricians, the, carpenters, the script supervisor, the costume people, they've all had and the star and the other actors have had an enormous amount of experience doing what they do, and you're having this thing on your shoulders. So I always have great, great, great compassion for any first-time director.
Action!
I'm hoping I'm going to make something that isn't like everything else that's coming out. I'm hoping it's a story that will keep people's interest and that will attract talent, because I really feel I have the career I have because of my casts. I've been blessed with some of the greatest casts that any director could ask for, and continues. If you have a great story with really interesting roles for actors to challenge themselves, they will come. They sense that there's something in that they have to challenge themselves with. And any actor who turns down a role, I think they're wrong for the role. They wouldn't turn it down. Actors know what their part is, and they don't want someone else to have it. I think the style of the film should depend on the story. And I think there are certain themes that I'm very attracted to, I think some darker material. I think my heroes and heroines are not perfect people. I think they're very flawed. A lot of times the movie is a journey for them to recognize their flaws and perhaps strive to be better. I certainly have made a lot of films about young people's journeys in life because I think there's always hope for the young, not for me. It's too late. And also I have been complimented and accused of objectifying men and women sexually and physically in my films. And I'm still trying to figure out what the harm of that is. I don't know where the sin is involved in that. I know by the first or second page if I'm the right director. Many times I'll get a great piece of material, but I'm the wrong guy. And you have to turn it down. If you're the wrong director, you're the wrong director, and you can't kid yourself. There are a lot of people I don't ask to audition. If that was a huge Hollywood production with a 20 million plus movie star in it, I don't think it would have been a very good movie. I don't think it would have been very interesting, but it also would have changed the whole nature of the film. Because I would have been expected to make much more money. And when you're expected to make much more money, there's a kind of vanillaizing, a neutrality that sweeps over something. Adrenaline going, I mean, we've got a guy standing in a phone booth. I wanted the audience to feel like they were in that booth with Colin.
Cut. Back off.
Any director that has a vision, and it starts like a symphony where there's a downbeat, and then it goes and goes and goes and goes, and then it ends, but it's all of a piece. I think that's a great director because they've had a vision, and they've had the courage and the balls to stick by that vision and take whatever the consequences are. So, it doesn't matter to me how large the film is. To me, it's the movement of the film. I try not to trick actors because I start with respect. And if that isn't working, then I'll go to, directing actors is very much like being a parent with a lot of children. Each one teaches you what they need. Some people need a kick in the butt. Some people need a shoulder to cry on. Some people don't need a lot at all. They want you to just give them a little bit here and there. They don't want a lot. Some people are very needy and want to talk about everything all the time, which is fine with me. Each one is different. The only thing I won't tolerate is a really ugly behavior, especially towards people on the crew that can't talk back. Sometimes a threat will do. Sometimes they need to walk away from it for a while. They're trying too hard. Sometimes the scene is wrong and I've been wrong, and it's the wrong way to do it. And the reason they're not getting it is because maybe we shouldn't be getting it. So you have to also listen to that. Some people get in their own way, and I have to get them out of their way. But I have found a couple of times threats were very, very useful. I worked with an actor a few years ago who's a fantastic young actor, not that well known, but is capable of great performances, and he did a great audition for this scene but I think he was jealous and resentful of another young man in the scene with him. And it seemed to me spiteful that he wasn't getting it. And it required a great deal of work for the cast and crew to do this shot. And I felt he was just being perverse. And I did this once before with an 18-year-old. I said, okay, one last take, and if you don't get it, I'm playing the whole scene on him. That'll work. Robert De Niro likes to whisper to me in Flawless. He would whisper everything he was going to do in a scene. And I think it was much more of thinking out loud. You know, I'm going to walk over, and then I'm going to light the cigarette, Joel, and then I'm going to go over here, then I'm going to do that. And, you know, whereas Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was the co-star and an equally brilliant actor, didn't want to talk about things too much. He just wanted to do it and then look over and see, you know, some actors don't want to talk about it too much. They want to do it and then see how, and I'm a big fan of that too. After you've talked, I just say, well, why don't we try it? Because the talk is good, but ultimately you have to do it. The job is really serving others. It isn't playing God. It is serving others. And what I always say to film classes and to students when I speak to them is, you know, sitting at home and thinking, you know, I'm going to take Lawrence to Arabia and I'm going to do this incredible 70-millimeter shot of the desert. I'm going to really take people to the desert. And there's going to be this little camel going across the desert with Peter O'Toole and his white burnous, and and I'm going to put great music to it, and it's going to be fantastic. And I said, that's the easy part. Now first you have to get someone to finance it. You have to talk them into Peter O'Toole, who is relatively unknown. And then you have to get to the desert. And no one's going to like being in the desert. It's going to be 150 degrees. You have to have porta potties, you have to have water, you have to have food, and I keep saying, no one's going to like being in the desert. And then, you know, the camel owner is going to bring you the sick camel, because if you want the real camel, it's going to cost you more money. And then Peter O'Toole will be hungover or drunk, and he will hate the white costume, and he doesn't want to come out of his trailer, right? And then the studio will be telling you it's costing too much money. And then here's the really great part of shooting in the desert. Once you set up the track and the camera, and the camel goes across, it ruins the sand. So you have to then move in the desert. And that's the job. 1% is inspiration and creative. 99% is working with people. I think we all know that awards, well, they're kind of fun at the moment. I'm not so sure they have a lasting, we'll start talking about them.
Action!
I've made 20 features, and it is like having 20 children, so it's very hard to pick. Sometimes the ones that were hardest, before, during, and after, I learned the most from. I've been very lucky to have success and to have people see my movies. Success is not the greatest teacher in the world. My mistakes teach me much more. Early on, the combination of St. Elmo's Fire and Lost Boys opened doors for me in Hollywood that I didn't even know existed. I loved Batman Forever and the success we had with it, because we were hired to reinvent it, and I think we did. I didn't do my best job with Batman and Robin, and it made a lot of money, but I learned then not to do sequels, believe me. Although it was very good to my old age, trust me. And but it helped me define myself more, and I think since then, 8mm and Flawless and Tigerland and Phone Booth, Veronica Guerin, and the number 23, I think are some of my best films. I think they're controversial and risky and daring. And back to my earlier work with Falling Down, etc. What I'd say to anybody who's a fan of our films, that I want to thank you, because I wanted to be a director all my life, and you're the ones who made it happen, because much is made of critics, much is made of media, much is made of publicity, much is made of spin. To people, too much with my films.